showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
I want to personally welcome you out today to episode 99 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. Welcome to my show, everybody. Welcome to the podcast that I introduce you to locals, professionals, everyday people in Salt Lake City that are making the city just a little bit better and making it a place that I can be proud to call home. So thank you for joining me. Really quickly, I want to mention the sponsor for the episode, Urban Lounge, located at 241 South, 500 East in downtown Salt Lake City. You could check them out online at theurbanloungeslc.com. Check out all the upcoming shows, all the bands that are going to be playing there, so make sure to check them out. All the links for their Twitter and Facebook, again, is at theurbanloungeslc.com. This episode, really great episode. I had the opportunity to sit down with Ben Winslow. He's a multimedia journalist for Fox 13 News. He's always experimenting with new technologies and ways to tell news stories on many different platforms. I sat down with him in my apartment. We found out a little bit more about him, talked to him kind of how he got into news, how he got into journalism, some of his hobbies and interests, what he loves about Salt Lake City. Really, really great conversation. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. So without any more chatting, let's jump into that conversation that I had with Ben Winslow from Fox 13 News. I'm sure a lot of people listening know who you are, Ben Winslow. Probably follow you on Twitter. You know, that's probably where you're most well known on Twitter. But why don't you just kind of introduce yourself and kind of share a little bit about who Ben Winslow is and what you do?
I cover news all over the state. I work for Channel 13, and yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's a fun job, and I really enjoy it. You know, you get to go around. Every day is different, and that's probably what I like most about the job. And you tell people stories. You experience different things. Some days are good, some days are bad. You know, but we tell the stories.
Journalism. How did you get introduced to journalism? What made you decide to pursue that? Did you have like any early influences or people that you looked up to in the journalism world?
I got into journalism in kind of a roundabout way. My uncle was a TV anchorman years and years and years and decades ago, really. I, thought that was really interesting, but actually I wanted to be an art student. And so I went to college intending to be an artist.
So when you started school, you were going to be an artist?
Yeah, and I'd actually worked for my local hometown paper and written a couple of articles and been on my high school newspaper staff. But I still thought I was going to be an artist. And then I went to college, and then you quickly learn that, hey, if I want to eat, I need to have something a little more full-time.
And where'd you go to school at?
Southern Utah University.
Okay, and that's, you went there for all your years? You graduated from there? Or did you make it to the U at all? Or
no, I actually did not graduate.
Oh, you did not graduate?
Yeah, my secret shame that is probably not so secret now. But I did not graduate, and I've regretted that. But I started working down there, and what happened was I went down there. I was bouncing around from major to major: social sciences, political science, communications, art, pre-law, business, even philosophy. I kind of tried everything. And I had jobs in the media. I had a scholarship to the school newspaper. I got a job at a local radio station. It was a heavy metal station in Cedar City, Utah.
So where you kind of got your start.
Yeah. I basically was there working on a school project. My college instructor was the manager of that radio station, so we were using their equipment to complete a school project, and they needed someone to work that weekend. And hey, Ben, you want a job? Okay.
And so what'd you do there?
I changed reels. It was the old reel-to-reel, the giant reels of tape.
Well, you're not that old.
I know, but the station was.
Yeah.
and so I went and did that on weekends. Basically, it was a job. I needed money. You're a college student. I needed the work. And so I started doing that. And then I worked at the local paper, and then I started doing a little bit more with the radio station. It was a full service station. So we played music, we did news, we did sports, all sorts of stuff like that. So it was a great experience. I kind of started behind the scenes, and they decided to make me a reporter on the FM station for the news, and I was a DJ on the AM station.
And did you enjoy that? I mean, what?
It was interesting. It was a different experience. I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. My first day as an honest-to-God salaried reporter was the day that we had a chemical plant explosion that killed 2 people. Yeah,
wow.
First day on the job. So I it was kind of weird. I ran out to, drove out in my beat-up 1980 yellow Datsun with the rust on the side, and drove out to the roadblock, and you're amped up. You're going to be a reporter. You got the microphone, run up to the guy and, "Sheriff, what can you tell me? What happened? What's going on?" Shouting questions. And the guy turns to me. He's like, "You do realize I work for the other radio station in town, right?" So first experience being a reporter. It was kind of interesting, but, yeah. And then I would DJ occasionally. And then, the station that I worked for, it was interesting because we would play like Queensryche, Metallica, and Ozzy Osbourne and all these things. So you'd DJ and then do the news, and it was a lot of fun. It was really interesting.
So did you want to pursue anything in radio then at that time? Did you have any desire to maybe continue that, or did it just not cards didn't fall
actually,
in your lap?
After that I did. I stayed in radio for a number of years.
Just down in
southern Utah.
Okay.
Various jobs for various stations.
Bigger stations in the college, or just the college?
Oh, the college station, but also as at the local radio station there, the metal station. It was KBR.
Are you a metal person? I like by.
I mean, I have a certain appreciation for it.
Yeah, I didn't know if if I went to like a metal show, if I'd see you up front row, with rocking your head and
maybe if it were Rob Zombie or something, like that. But little Andrew WK or something. But maybe Queensryche. I got a little soft spot there. Metallica.
So just some good classics.
Good classics. Yeah. I mean, I like Van Halen, not Van Hagar, and
I think most of us do.
I think,
yeah.
So that was the kind of thing, and it was an interesting kind of odd fit for a radio station in southern Utah. But we had a good time. A lot of people who worked there.
I could imagine.
It was an interesting place, and then we got bought, became a top 40 station. So it was polar opposite of what we were. So we went from playing like Metallica to playing Christina Aguilera's "Genie in a Bottle." Really interesting.
And what did you like to play top 40 more than the metal, or what? It didn't really matter.
It didn't really matter.
It didn't matter to you. So you didn't graduate down there. What brought you back to Salt Lake then? I mean, what?
I just decided to, I started actually as a stringer for the Salt Lake Tribune down in southern Utah. I would do the occasional stories, and then I started doing some stringing for KSL Radio down there as well. And it, you just a lot of the stuff that I was covering anyway through the course of my job down there, I was doing, just offering the stories up here in northern Utah. And eventually got a job at KSL full time. I worked the graveyard shift. Initially, I started working their assignment desk overnight and basically making sure the station stayed on the air. Overnights, at the time, KSL played music for truckers. It was kind of a country music show.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, the Road Gang is what it was called. And it was, and I'd cover occasionally things that happened overnight. I just did a lot of graveyard work. And then eventually I moved to the morning show.
On KSL.
Yeah, on KSL with Grant and Amanda. And then...
How was it working with them?
They were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were fantastic. Really enjoyed working with both of them. In fact, I would say the personality that... And people ask me this to this day still. What's Amanda like? She's like that. Just this infectious personality, exciting,
energetic.
Wow. I wish I could bottle that.
Well, I think we all would. Yeah.
So,
Now, did you grow up in the southern area of Utah, or this area of Utah, or Utah at all?
Front.
Okay.
Yeah,
so I didn't know if that was your original stomping grounds down there in southern Utah. If that's why you were down there in the first place, I didn't know.
I just went for school.
Went for school,
and then stayed down there and worked for a number of years, and then eventually moved up here. And then after working about 6 years or so at KSL, I went over to the Deseret News as a crime reporter.
I bet you that was interesting.
It was very interesting. I had a good time there too. Just covered a lot of different things.
A lot of crimes in Salt Lake City.
Crimes in Salt Lake City, crimes statewide, really.
What was probably one of the craziest crimes you ever saw with that? I mean, or is there, I don't
It's almost too many to name. There's a lot that,
people don't think stuff goes on in Utah.
One of the ones I think that probably, impacted me the most was the one that happened here in Salt Lake, Destiny Norton's murder, the 5-year-old girl who was kidnapped by a neighbor and murdered. Such a horrible crime. And I got to know her family a little bit, and it was just heartbreaking when we found out that she had died.
Didn't you cover a lot of the Elizabeth Smart story too, right?
I did for KSL.
For KSL.
And that was...
That was a story and a half.
Jaw-dropping, really.
Yeah.
I remember still vividly when we found out that she had been found, and I had a source call me up and say they found Elizabeth Smart, I believe it was I had called somebody because we'd heard about it, and I'd called somebody I knew who kind of was on the inside track on that, and I'd asked, so I'm hearing they found Elizabeth Smart, and pause, and then yes, and then I said, well, is she dead or alive? And then I just remember a longer pause, and then alive, and I just was like, holy.
Unreal.
Yeah.
It was unreal.
And it just kind of exploded from there. News conferences at the police station and the reuniting, with her family, of course, is just a very happy occasion. And
so that must have been cool to be part of that, to be reporting that. I mean, to be able to be there to report it. To be there to report it, you look back on it, and the one thing I do like about reporting is you kind of have a front row of history being made, and we don't think of it that way until when it's happening.
Yeah, when it's happening. We don't think about it like that. We think of it as just happening now, news and everything like that. And you look back on it and it's like, wow, that was somewhat historic. It's like the Olympics at the time, it's a big event. You're covering it. You just, when you look back on it, you're like, wow, that was, kind of a local piece of history, of course, one of the biggest events to happen to this area. Did you cover the Olympics at all? I did. Who were you with at that time? I was with KSL, and I was covering the downtown area, and it was a lot of fun. I stuck around mostly to the downtown and the venues that were happening here. It was quite fascinating when a lot of the stuff happened, like the Skategate controversy, when we had the figure skating scandal and the accusations of fixing and things, trying to figure out what was going on. I covered a lot of the International Olympic Committee, so a lot of the IOC members that would come in through the main media center at the Salt Palace. You'd try to get comment from when that stuff was going on. That was pretty wild. I covered a lot of the protests downtown. One of the more interesting ones I remember was the Falun Gong, which is the Chinese spiritual movement that's it's banned in China, and that's largely a lot of the protests. And it was probably the slowest moving protest I have ever been to. They were doing a meditative walk, and they shut down blocks of traffic doing it. It was just and you were wild. Just like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself and you're on the phone doing a report going, they're still moving, they're not quite through the protest route yet. And it was very interesting. So then after Deseret News, that's when you teamed up with Fox, right? Yeah, or Fox 13? Yeah, I went to Fox. I did a brief stint at KSL Radio again, but then went over to Fox. And how long have you been with them? About almost 4 years now. 4 years? Yeah. And if you go to the website, it lists you as a multimedia journalist. What is a multimedia journalist? Is that just because you attack Twitter or what? No, yes and no, I guess you could say. What it originally was is I was hired kind of as the first wave of people that they have who shoot and edit their own stuff. And I did a lot of my own video work, and I did a lot of editing of those stories. And then I also do a lot on online. I write a lot of stories for the internet site, as well as, on our Twitter accounts and things like that. So on Twitter, how a lot of people know you as Ben Winslow on Twitter, follow you at Ben Winslow, right? Yeah. Was that your idea or was that their idea? Oh, no, I've had the Twitter account before I went over to Fox.
Okay.
It wasn't until I actually went over there, really, that I made it public. It was more of a, originally when I set up my Twitter account, I had locked it down, had a private account.
Really?
And then...
So locked, so nobody could see your tweets or anything?
Unless, I had
and you were tweeting, probably taking pictures of your dinner, stuff like that?
Not really. That was even prior to the great Instagram movement. It was just more of, I was using it to read people's stuff. We were all just kind of figuring out Twitter, and then I just started doing more of it. And then, of course, just, made it public, and then just started doing more of it and more of it. And, I love it.
So why don't
it's a lot of fun.
Why don't you think more news reporters use Twitter? I mean, I've never seen anybody use it as extensively as you.
Well, thank you.
You use it. No, well, yeah, you're welcome. I mean, absolutely. I mean, how often do you post on Twitter? I mean,
I'm sure some people would argue it's bordering spam.
do you get a lot of complaints?
Not really. I know some people will mute on occasion, or
like a hashtag or something like that.
Yeah, they'll and some people. I've had a few people say, "Hey, I'm going to unfollow you for a little bit," especially sometimes the subject matter that I tweet about is a little much. It's a little much for people, and it's understandable completely. But usually people like the updates. They like to know what's going on. They, have an interest in what's happening. And, I like to provide that service, I guess.
Again, you don't know how many tweets probably. I mean, would you say 20, 30, 40, 50? I mean,
I think it's going to vary based upon the day.
Absolutely,
especially if I'm live tweeting a news conference. I mean, it could be dozens before it's over. Other times, sometimes I post. I think the least I've posted is maybe twice a day or something.
And people
some
are
days
like,
when I'm on
Ben,
vacation,
are you alive? Are you alive?
Yeah, some days when I'm on vacation and I'm really trying to be better about this whole work-life balance thing. I when I'm on vacation, I try not to post anything at all, which I think kind of unnerves people.
Yeah. Do you think Twitter is a great medium to get live in news out to the people? I mean, because it's pretty much instant. I mean, have you ever discovered breaking news that way, like from somebody else's tweet?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I mean...
And I have people who will point out things to me.
Really?
It's great. Just people, hey, I saw this. What's going on? And sometimes that's led us to make a few phone calls and find out it's a great story or something is happening at that moment. Always love the feedback. It's something that, I think we all should pay attention to
Twitter.
Is what people are saying. It's a good kind of finger on the pulse of what's going on. It's the same thing.
But you use Facebook as well.
Oh, yeah.
You have a Facebook site. Do you use any other social media platforms?
I'm probably still one of 7 people in America on Google+.
And Google Plus was a good thing. I
love it.
I was really excited when they released it and I saw what it was going to be. I was like, this is going to be awesome. This is going to take over Facebook. And then it just kind of
I didn't see it as a Facebook killer like a lot of people were wondering or pontificating. I like it. I like the format of it. I like the circles concept of being able to put people in certain circles and then share based upon that. And I know Facebook has lists that are supposed to be based similar.
But it's kind of tough to
figure
figure
out Facebook's lists.
Yeah,
and
I can't either.
I need to sit down and spend a good 3, 4, 5 hours, I don't know, trying to figure that out so that I,
So you kind of figure the sites out themselves. People don't teach you them. It's not like you got on Twitter and
I'm always willing, if someone's willing to teach me, sure,
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, if someone's even willing to teach me cool new tricks with Twitter, I'm always.
Well, what about Ben Winslow on Pinterest?
I do have Pinterest. I don't post on Pinterest. I lurk on Pinterest. It's great for recipes.
Are you a big cook? Do you cook a lot?
Not really.
Not
no,
really.
I really order a mean takeout. But I can imagine myself as a great cook. And it's just interesting. Like you can see drink recipes. You can find food recipes. That are really interesting. There's actually a blog that I love to follow called Pinterest Fail. And it's all the things that people see on Pinterest that they think is a really cool idea, and then they actually make it. And if it looks absolutely horrible, so they'll post the side-by-side comparison, the glorious picture of what's on Pinterest and then what the tragic was. Results of what they had.
I'll have to check that website out. So, I mean, you work a lot. I mean, even sitting down with you were like, well, we can plan it, but if there's breaking news.
That's the caveat I give everybody.
Yeah.
If something's happened, sometimes you got to go.
No, and that's understandable. But what's a typical day like for you? I mean, are you always working? Do you ever have time for yourself?
I try to have time for myself, but usually, I mean, I'm always trying to check and make sure things, I'm still on top of things, because you just never know where you're going to be sent from one day to the next, or even one part of the day to the next. And so you try to pay attention.
So you're always listening to the news. You're always paying attention.
Trying to just keep up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I'm on top of it all the time, but you try to keep up.
Do you have like any publications you read, or news stories, or radio stations that you listen to kind of keep up with everything? Or
try to pretty much everything. I know it's sometimes like
Fox,
drinking from
the
fire hose. Yes, of course. And I do watch Good Day Utah, and I'm working the days now, so I'm usually there when Live at 11's going on, and then working for the news at 5, and then watching the 9 o'clock. And so and we are launching our 4 o'clock tomorrow, in fact. So we're adding more newscasts. But I just, try to pay attention to everybody, all the local papers, all the ones statewide. I try to pay attention to, what's going on both public and commercial radio, and just keep an eye on what's going on. I mean, I even listen to your podcast.
Well, thank you.
It's always interesting to hear, fascinating interviews.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. How do you get picked for a story? How do you get picked to cover?
Some things you get assigned to, some days you pitch your own.
Yeah.
I try to just keep an eye on what's going on, or have an idea of what's going on. And, I welcome story ideas. If anybody has one out there, always, willing to listen. Can't promise that I'll ever do a story on it, but always willing to pass it along so that, maybe it can get covered.
What about breaking news, though? Or do you just
sometimes that just happens and you just go.
To the thing,
and, they say, we need you to go here, and you go there.
What's your favorite, all-time favorite thing with your job? What do you enjoy the most with what you do?
I like the variety of it. Every day
is something
different, and it's just a lot of fun that way. And some days, you're covering something that's really just heartbreaking and sad. Today, I covered both a homicide up in Ogden and a fatal crash involving a suspected drunk driver that killed a 22-year-old mother of a 2-year-old. Just, some days are rough, and then other days you cover something else that, is maybe a little lighter. Last week I was at the DABC commission meeting, and that was interesting to sit there and listen to them discuss the whole intent to dine, and whether you have to state declaratively, yes, I intend to dine, before you actually get a drink and before you actually order your food.
Do some of those get kind of silly? Do you find them being like, come on, guys, like, let's get, or is that kind of a tough spot to put you in? I guess
I try not to have an opinion on a lot of the things that I cover,
I can respect that.
And at least try to remain impartial. Certainly, as journalists, we have opinions, but you try to keep that out of it, and just cover the facts, and kind of, to borrow a cliched phrase, we report, you decide.
Yeah. Back to, kind of, you were talking about like news stories, some of them heartbreaking. When you first got involved with what you did, how did you learn to separate your own emotion with what you were doing? Does that make sense? Kind of, so you didn't get completely, that's got to be rough.
It's not easy.
Even sleepless nights.
Mm-hmm.
What is the secret there, or is there a secret?
There really isn't. I think that you just do the best you can, and it's not easy. Some days are better than others, and there are some stories that get to you and are kind of disturbing, and then I think sometimes you have to just put it in a box and focus on your work.
What qualities would you say a person needs to have to be a good journalist, to be a good news reporter? Do you think that there's any qualities that a person needs to have?
I think that if you have an inquisitive nature, curiosity, if you're kind of always willing to try to consider all sides, and maybe have those kinds of skills, that's good. The natural ability to question and to just ask questions. And then I think that you have to write, and you have to love writing, because that's a large part of the job, is just composing so much.
And did you take any classes for writing? Did you?
Oh, yeah.
So obviously, like your basic English communication.
But the more you do it, the better you get.
Well, no, and that goes back to even, I guess, being a good journalist of knowing what kind of questions to ask.
And I'm not saying I ask great questions either.
Oh, come on, you ask
Sometimes
the best.
you just gotta go with it. Sometimes the best question to ask is, so what's up with that? And then, see where it goes.
So what advice would you give? Let's say somebody, even myself or anybody, they wanted to get into journalism or reporting the news. What advice would you give them?
I would say that certainly, just always be curious. Always pay attention to what's going on. Keep up on current events. And if you're looking at getting into news, don't be afraid to start small and work your way up. I think that people always, starting in a tiny place like in Cedar City, Utah.
Willing to even work for free, maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of intern and
yeah, I think even that, if as long as it gets your foot in the door and you prove yourself and you're willing to work to prove yourself. Yeah.
What would you mentioned art in the beginning. What do you think, would that be kind of what you wanted to do besides journalism? Or, I gotta be honest, I haven't thought about it or done any art in a long time, really. Yeah.
I should maybe try to pick it up again. I have friends who are artists and, deeply envious of their talent. It was one of those things when you go down there, you think that you're going to be this and then you turn out to be something else.
Yeah. So with that being said, what are some of Ben Winslow's other hobbies and interests? What do you enjoy when you get a few minutes of free time? Do you have, or do you get any free time?
I try to have free time. Absolutely. I think that I do like hiking and camping. I don't do enough of it, but it's a lot of fun exploring a lot of the state. Do
you have any favorite camping spots?
Big Cottonwood Canyon.
Big Cottonwood, yeah.
Gorgeous. I haven't been up in the Uintas in so long that I really need to. It was really fun. I think the last, one of the last big outdoor things that I did was actually part of a story. I went down to the Four Corners area, which I did a story on the lack of light pollution down there. The fact that it's one of the darkest spots on Earth. And I've never seen so many stars in my life. Amazing, spectacular. So I try to do that. I'm really trying to explore the state a little bit more, or be better at it. Going and hiking different places. Antelope Island is one of my favorite spots.
And it's super close.
It's right there.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Just the diversity of wildlife. I mean, you're walking along the trail and there's a bison.
So when you're covering a story, like what was the story you said you covered in southern Utah? It's something about the air pollution?
Light pollution.
Light pollution.
The dark skies.
The light. Obviously, you don't know anything about. Do you just have to do some research?
Yeah, you do. You try to do a little research.
Oh my gosh! And you get online and Google it. And
and you read some of the stuff.
So you're constantly educating yourself.
Yeah, and I think if you have a thirst for knowledge, that's one of the biggest things about this job is just always wanting to know more and learn something new. And that's what I love about this job is I learn things that I had no idea, even existed or were around. For example, another story that I did, it was in central Utah, was Pando, which is one of the largest aspen clones. One of the largest living organisms on the planet is in central Utah. Pando. It's this aspen clone.
Pando.
Yeah. It's this aspen clone.
Write that down.
And it's Latin for I spread, I believe, if memory serves me correct. And it's right there off the road in the middle of the Fish Lake National Forest. And it's amazing. It's this beautiful aspen grove. It's one organism because they're all connected at the roots.
And you just had to research and study that.
Research and learn about it and learn about aspen groves and aspen clones and why they're threatened because Pando is actually dying right now and they don't really know why. Oh. It's millions of years old and maybe it's had a good life or maybe it's... there's pollution aspects to it. There's wildlife grazing. There's other plant life that may be threatening it. They're trying all these different experiments right now to try to figure out what can reinvigorate it, what can save it. But, it's a fascinating subject.
It sounds fascinating.
It was an interesting story. And
how long ago was that? When was that?
Last year that I went down there to see the Pando clone and do a story on it for Fox 13. It was fantastic.
Now, you mentioned in the beginning you kind of do your own video. Do you still do your own video stuff? or
not as much anymore?
Not as much anymore. Did you get into doing your own photography, too? Did you,
get
into photography at all? Like taking just pictures for fun? Or?
When they hired me, I promised them one step above YouTube, and I'd like to think I delivered to my bosses at Fox. But I think right now a lot of the stuff, the photography or whatever that I take is Instagram photos.
That's right. You're on Instagram too.
Yeah.
Right?
So you throw a Walden filter on it and it looks great.
Well, everybody's an instant photographer with Instagram. You know what I mean?
I know it's much mocked, and it's with the hipster filters, but I like it. It's fun.
Well, I used to organize a lot of the Insta walks here in Salt Lake. You know what I mean? And we should have got you out to come out to one of them. But now share something. What is something about Ben Winslow, a guilty pleasure, or something that listeners or people just in general wouldn't expect? That one thing that maybe just people wouldn't expect, maybe even a band, you were kind of talking about some of your bands or just something about yourself that people wouldn't expect.
Oh gosh, you're going to trip me up. I'm blanking right now.
A favorite food or a favorite movie?
I don't really have either one of those, but I think the one thing that surprises a lot of my coworkers is that, I'm a big video game fan.
There you go.
I mean,
see, I didn't know that.
Xbox and
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of my coworkers were a little surprised that. I like playing some of the video games out there. Yeah.
What's your favorite game?
Right now, I just finished some of the Assassin's Creed videos, and I know I'm a little late to that party, but.
Well, I don't know anything about video games. So.
See, you should get an Xbox. It's a lot of fun.
People tell me that.
It's a big time waster probably, but it's a good way to kind of check out for the day. And I like zombie killing games. That's a lot of fun. I'm fully convinced that at the zombie apocalypse, I am prepared to survive it, having played years of Resident Evil. So
you kind of grew up in the area, more or less, off and on, southern Utah, this part of what do you like about Salt Lake City in general? Overall, what do you like about the city?
When I started working up here, I thought I was only going to be here through the end of the 2002 Winter Olympics.
And where did you want
to? I don't know. I wanted to move to a different market. Who knows? Boston, Atlanta, New York, whatever. Wanted to move somewhere else, but. I just like it here. I really like living here. It's a great place to live. You're right next to the outdoors. It's just nice people. Everything is just, I like it. I like living here. I'm happy to call this place home. And
is there anything that you would change about it?
I don't know. I mean, it's changing already.
Well, exactly.
So much. You look
is.
at the downtown area, just even within the last, 5-10 years, and it's changed dramatically. I mean, even the last 2 years with City Creek coming online, and all of that, it's changed. The landscape is still evolving. There's a couple of new skyscrapers, I understand, are due to be built.
Really?
Yeah. And then there's, the Air Center, which is coming up too. I mean, there's just so much already.
Well, plus if you change something, it might change what Salt Lake City is. Mm-hmm. People are like, oh, I want this and I want this. And it's kind of like, well, I like the fact that I can walk downtown at 2 a.m. on a Friday night and not really worry if I'm going to, be mugged. I mean, there is always that possibility, I guess, but for the most part, it's not like LA or New York City. It's a pretty safe city. Let's say somebody was listening that isn't from Salt Lake and they were going to visit. Is there a spot or something that you would recommend? Hey, you got to check this place out. You got to check, this area of town out or this building out or take a tour of this or...
There's so many things, and I've had people ask that who come from out of town, and I try to send them to different places. I think that if they're in town and they can catch a Twilight concert, that's always fun. I mean, $5. It's really good.
It's amazing.
It's a great deal. For $5, and you're seeing Empire of the Sun?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that's great. Let's see. I think that for just a lot of fun, there's just so many different interesting places. For people who are interested in history, I always try to send them up to This Is the Place State Park to check that out. If you want truly Old West, I say you go out to Antelope Island, that it's worth the trip, because most people never get that close to some of the animals that are out there or see them. The Great Salt Lake is just fascinating.
Well, you get some of the smell.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's brine flies and all of that, but it's just neat to go see. And if people go out to Saltaire, just to even kind of look at it, it's just kind of interesting. Kennecott, when they did tours before the slide, was just interesting to see. Downtown, just Temple Square all the way down. There's a lot of fascinating things to see all around the area. The Capitol. If you've never done the Capitol tour, get
out and do it.
It is actually really interesting.
Yeah.
I like some of the historical old-timey stuff. I'm kind of one of those history buffs that enjoys that. If you're going to go even further out, I would say Golden Spike.
Up in Ogden?
No, Promontory. Way out there.
Oh, okay.
Where the actual spike was driven.
Okay. I was thinking like the railroad or something,
Yeah, that is, but it's way out past Ogden. It's where the Golden Spike was actually driven, uniting the Continental Railroad. Really, really interesting. Once a year, they do the kind of reenactment of it, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
There's just so much stuff, but downtown definitely, particularly in Salt Lake, there's just a lot of interesting little things if you can check out, just kind of wandering even. And I think what trips people up is the size of our blocks.
Is there anything we could do about that you bring?
I think that ship has already sailed.
We're kind of set there.
Brigham Young established that.
Yeah,
he wanted to turn the oxen cart, and you can make a U-turn with one of those on these streets. I think it was just the way it is. One thing I really appreciate though is the grid system.
Oh. If you live here, you know how to get around. It's the people that come here and visit. I don't understand these numbers.
They don't understand it, and I don't understand how I can go from, Main Street to, and State and Main intersect somewhere, and they don't hear. And I don't understand when I have to go to, street such and such a name to street such and such a name. I'm in another city and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, you need a GPS in other cities. You don't need to really own one if you're in Salt Lake City.
You can just figure it out yourself.
Exactly. So, one of my favorite questions to ask everybody that comes on the show, favorite restaurants, cafes, eatery, dining spots, obviously local places that Ben likes to eat at, or any recommendations. Even... it doesn't have to be your number one place, but favorite joints.
Oh, there's a few. Let's see. I like the Frida Bistro. I like the food there. The Red Iguana.
Delicious.
Oh, that mole.
if you can handle the wait, I
go to Red Iguana too.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, scrap that, people, because I don't want you in that line. I don't want you to create your own line. That is my Red Iguana. The Sitting Creek Red Iguana even has it.
Has a line or
has a mole.
Really?
Yeah.
I see. I don't really go. I'm not in the market for a Rolex, so I don't really get to City Creek very often.
You can go to the food court though.
Yeah, go to the food court.
There is, I do. Oh yeah, the Red Iguana, the Frida Bistro. Gosh, what else is there that I would recommend to people?
You hit up
any
of the food trucks or?
Oh yes. Food Truck Thursday is the most glorious thing ever. I love it. I love the food trucks.
And I think all of them are delicious, so it's hard to really pinpoint.
I love trying all of them. Chow Truck, Q for You, Wacky Packy. I love them all. And they're also delicious. I love the food trucks.
It's great to see them coming to Salt Lake, man.
That is my obsession lately, is the food trucks. I will follow them anywhere. And
you follow them all on Twitter and see where they're at, and
I want them to be better at Twitter. I want them to use it more.
I think all businesses could be better at Twitter.
I know, but I want the food trucks to tell me where they are more at Twitter, because that drives me crazy is when somebody refers me to their Facebook page or their website, and I'm on my phone. I need to be able to see where you are
like
instantly.
A little GPS tracker.
Exactly, because I'm usually...
There's the Lewis Brothers truck. Let's follow it.
Exactly. I'm usually with a photographer, and we're both hungry, so I'm in the passenger seat looking up, where they are, so we can maybe go intersect with them somewhere while we're still on a story and grab a quick bite to eat and then move on. But I love the food trucks. They are amazing. Gosh, I can't believe you had to prompt me to declare my love for the food trucks when they're right there.
I love the food trucks too, so I always bring it up. I always like to find out what people's favorites are.
I wish that we had like Portland does, where they've taken over entire parking lots in city blocks. That is just the most amazing.
And could they not
thing
do?
ever.
Is there laws here? Is that kind of
I don't know
what keeps them from doing that?
I wonder if there are city ordinances.
Which is sad. They need to change that.
Well, but are you a restaurant or are you a mobile food service? I mean, I can completely understand the concerns of some of the restaurants that having something like that where you're paying less for rent and less for
it's a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea, man.
Yeah, I love them. I think they're fantastic.
Hey, the thought of starting one has crossed my mind.
It has crossed mine too. I have a secret plan for if the news business just doesn't work out, I will start a food truck, but I will not reveal what my concept would be because I don't want somebody to steal my idea, but it is glorious.
I can respect that. Well, what's in store for Ben Winslow? What's the future like? I mean, just more of what you're doing? I mean, do you kind of have any goals in the media world or is that kind of top secret?
Not really. I've worked in radio. I've worked for internet. I've worked in print. I've worked in television now. So I've kind of done all the different mediums. I really like working at Fox 13. It is a great place to work. I just have a fun time.
It seems like you guys got a great group of people.
We really do. Everybody there is just fantastic.
And you're probably always on the road. You're probably not really at the offices too much.
Some days you are and some days you aren't. There was one day where photographer Doug and I, we went from Idaho, Malad, Idaho, where we were covering the lottery, to Colorado City, Arizona, within the span of 24 hours.
Wow. We
were all over the state, and that was a road trip and a half.
Put some miles on your car. Man.
Oh, and how. So, yeah. But I really enjoy it.
You can listen to a lot of podcasts while you're driving.
We can listen to a lot of podcasts. You can listen to a lot of music. You know, haven't dared do the audiobook thing because I think if you start it, you get hooked on it, and then you stay in your car. And I gotta hear how this chapter ends.
I gotta finish this chapter.
I gotta work.
Well, before we end, what's a motto or piece of advice you want to leave the listeners? Do you have like any words of wisdom from Ben?
Watch the news.
Watch the news.
Watch Fox 13 News.
And how can people stalk you? How can people find you online?
You can follow me on Twitter at Ben Winslow. You can find me at fox13now.com. I also have a Facebook like page. I am on Google+. And that's pretty much the most of the ways to reach me.
And Ben Winslow, pretty much for all those, I guess, is the safest bet. And I'll put the links on the website, with the show notes and everything. And I appreciate you sitting down with me. I know you're a busy guy. When, you reached out, I was like, awesome, I'm going to get Ben on the podcast. So you're a big part of Salt Lake, man.
Well, thank you.
I enjoy following you on Twitter.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
All right.
Many thanks, Ben, for coming on the podcast, sharing your story. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to my conversation with Ben Winslow. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at Ben Winslow and keep up with all the news and everything going on across the state of Utah. So I'm going to put all the notes at iamsaltlake.com/99. That way you can get in touch with him and let him know you heard him on the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Really quickly, I want to thank everybody for your support, for your emails, for your voicemails, all of that. I love hearing from my listeners. I love finding out what you guys like about living in Salt Lake and about the conversations that I've had with the different people on the podcast. So keep those emails coming in, those voicemails. Really quickly, let me run down the list. Email is iamsaltlake@gmail.com. Voicemail 385-202-5926. I'd love to hear what you thought of the conversation that I had with Ben Winslow. I'd love to hear what you love about living in Salt Lake. If you want to be a guest on the show, reach out and let me know. I'd love to bring you on. I'm here Monday and Thursday with a brand new episode. Next episode, episode 100, I got a really great episode for you guys with a special friend of mine. And I'm really excited to bring this episode to you. Episode 100 should be out on Thursday. So you're going to want to make sure to subscribe in iTunes. That way you guys do not miss a single episode of the podcast. So I think that's going to about do it for this episode. Thank you so much. My name is Chris Hollifield, and thank you so much for listening to another episode of I Am Salt Lake.